Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more slug testing. And today we've got another very interesting combo that we haven't tested yet. And it's one that if the slugs do what they're supposed to do, then they should be very good performers through today's setup. We've tested this new shotgun a few times now on the channel with some very solid results. So I'm hoping that this should work out pretty decently. I've heard this particular brand of slugs typically does well through one of these shotguns, so we'll see what we get. But for the slugs I've got today, I brought out some more of the Hornady American Whitetail Sabot slugs. These are a 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 325 grain interlock bullet loaded up in a sabot. And the back here says we have a claim of 1825 for our muzzle velocity. And you can kind of see what that loading looks like here on the back as well. We have tested these a while back through a Remington 870 with a rifled barrel, and they were okay, but I don't remember them being anything over the top special. So we'll see if we get any kind of improvement through today's combo. And for the shotgun today, I brought back out the Savage 212. Very interesting setup here. It's a bolt action 12 gauge shotgun, but it's set up just like a rifle. It's got a 22-inch fully rifled barrel on it. And for the scope up on top, I've got a Vortex Crossfire HD 3-9x40. And since it is a higher end Savage, it does indeed have the AccuTrigger loaded up in it as well. So very nice setup. It's got a lot of potential. We've seen some great accuracy from it so far, especially for a slug gun. So if those Hornady American Whitetails are going to perform through anything, it should in theory be this. So for our test today, we're going to run it the same as we usually do for slug testing like this. I only have a limited amount of these slugs to work with, so we got to kind of take what we can get. So we're going to shoot 2 groups. All of the shots will be through the chronograph as well, but first group is going to be at 50 yards and the second is going to be at 100 yards, and that should give us a decent idea on what this setup is capable of. If we see some really nice results, then maybe sometime in the future we'll extend it out a little farther, or we may have to adjust our ranges that we test this 212 at moving forward. But for today, 50 and 100 yards are going to be the distances. So let's get you guys a view of that target. We'll take our shots. Of course, the barrel will also have probably 10 minutes to cool down or so between the first and second group as I move cameras and targets. So let's head over here and take some shots and see what we can get from these Hornady American Whitetails through the 212. All right, so we'll run through our chronograph numbers real quick before we look at our target. Boss claim is 1825. However, we were not seeing that number. We do have a 22-inch barrel. They could have run them through a 24, but you really don't find very many slug barrels longer than 22 or 24 inches. And we definitely have what I would consider 2 misreads. One was like 6600, so I just deleted that one altogether. And another was down in the 1400s, so I just got rid of that one as well because I highly doubt that was accurate either. These Sabot slugs can be tricky going through the chronograph sometimes, especially with it being mixed clouds like it is today where it's sunny and then it's overcast, but we've got a number of good readings here. So our high was 1848, which is a little bit over their boss claim, but our low was 1727, so we're right back down in the 1700s again, but that gave us an average at 1760, so we're not too far under their claim. Probably makes sense that they ran it through a 24-inch or something about like that at the factory, with an extreme spread of 121, so not overly consistent either, and a standard deviation of 40. So at an average of 1760, here's your muzzle energy for a 325 grain slug at that velocity. Obviously, that's plenty good enough for any average deer hunt scenario. That's absolutely going to do the job, but how accurate were they? Let's go over to our target and measure some things. All right, so here we have our target, and definitely some interesting results here. I don't think they were overly consistent, but I don't think they're completely horrible either. This is kind of right on the fence or so. We'll start on the left with our 50-yard group, and although it does look like 2 bullet holes, there is 2 bullets stacked pretty much on top of each other in one hole right here at the top, with one flyer a little bit farther to the right. I felt good about all of those trigger pulls. I don't love that at 50 yards to already see flyers like that, but they have potential anyway if they weren't throwing flyers. At 50, it's 1.7 inches from the farthest to center across there, so still plenty capable of doing the job. Although I definitely don't love that flyer. Again, my trigger pull felt good, and that was the second shot we took, so it wasn't a cold bore shot or something like that. But moving over to the right with our 100-yard target, pretty interesting how the 100-yard grouped higher than the 50-yard did. These are obviously not the round I'm zeroed with, and that 212 seems to be a little particular to where if you switch slugs, you pretty much have to completely re-zero the gun. It's way more particular about switching between different slugs or different brands than what my 870 is. And that's why you always test and zero with the round you want to hunt with. But at 100, I took our initial 3 shots. We had 1 right on the edge, 2 just off the edge, and number 3 was somewhere right up here above the paper, which could have very well been another one of those flyers, kind of like we saw over here at 50. It just flung it high. So obviously I wanted to take another shot, to which we put it right back down here on the paper. And then I only had 1 shell left in the box, and I might as well shoot that just for numbers sake, and we put another one down here. So not anything overly impressive for 100 yards. I'm willing to bet we probably still had a flyer that flew up here off the top edge of the paper. It's not horrible. If that flyer was kind of right above the paper, then it's about a handprint size group there. But of the 4 that we did have on paper, we had just shy of 3 inches at 2.88. So I guess it's not too bad overall. It would absolutely be good enough for a 100-yard deer hunt scenario. I just don't love the flyers that it's throwing occasionally. And unfortunately, some of Hornady's loads, especially in the SST line, just seem to do that sometimes. I did check all of these slugs before firing them, and none of them were loose when they were sitting in the sabot loaded in the shell. I have run across that before, and that can definitely cause some issues, but everything looked fine here. So kind of middle of the road. Numbers wise, really not that bad. Just maybe a touch more inconsistent than what I would like to see, although they would still absolutely do the job. And here are a few of those sabots that I picked up off the range. They all flew about 40 or 45 yards, and they all look very much the same. Just your basic black, harder plastic sabot like Hornady typically uses. Good rifling engagement, so nothing out of the ordinary to see here. All of them performed exactly the same from what I can tell. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about those results right there? I would say they're adequate. It's going to do the job. There's an awful lot of slug guns out there that can't hold 3-inch groups, and they still knock a deer down every fall. So it is absolutely capable. And if we had that one shot at 100 yards on paper that we missed, most likely high, it probably still would have been about 3 inches, maybe a hair more or so. Realistically speaking, I like my slug guns to shoot 3 inches or better. That way I can be confident in them at least out to 100 yards. So this one probably would do that. But I definitely think, especially looking at that 50-yard target and throwing one way off to the side like that, there's probably a little bit of inconsistency here. Maybe a slug and a shell here or there isn't sitting perfectly flat or flush down in the sabot, or it might be a touch looser fit than others or anything like that. All of that little stuff can contribute to throwing flyers like that. So we definitely have seen better from that 212 so far, no doubt about it. So I guess you can leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Hornady American Whitetail Sabot slugs? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? After getting that kind of accuracy, is this a combo you would hunt with? Would you keep it a little closer range? That way, if you have inconsistencies, you can try and mitigate that a little bit. Or is that good enough for you out to 100 yards? And maybe what other slugs do you want to see me run through that 212? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All the information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.